And then Honorable Mbata and Mkunu, they are traveling to Cape Town. Honorable Chapa is attending the PC on Agriculture meeting. So, yeah. We're not adopting the reports and the minutes today. Chair said we can move them to Friday. So I have one. To start the meeting. Okay, we can wait for a few minutes. I'll get the other members to check if they can join the meeting.
All right.
Yeah.
That is seeing Dumela. Dumela that is seeing.
Mr. Metise?
Goeiemôre, waar is die mense?
Morning, Mr. Paulson.
I'm here, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Lovely.
Mr. Metise?
Chilis.
Yes, we are operating well.
Simnanti.
Siphelele.
Good morning, honorable members, and greetings to all participants who are attending the Portfolio Committee meeting today. I have been requested by the Chairperson, Honorable Mutambi, to hold the fort as we were discussing with Chilega that she was admitted last night because she took a strain during the funeral of Honorable Kro, who was buried over the weekend in Gauteng. I wish to take this opportunity to welcome the Minister, welcome the Deputy Minister. I see the hand of Honorable Bryant. Honorable Bryant, good morning.
Good morning, Chairperson. Chairperson, just in terms of process, I'd just like to formally nominate you to chair the meeting and propose that we get a seconder for that, just to make sure that we dot all the I's and cross the T's. Thanks, Chair.
I second Chair Tsingabisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bryant. As a matter of procedure, Honorable Bryant has already nominated me. Can we officially get a seconder so that it's put on record? Honorable Ganjo.
Good morning, Chairperson. Greetings, honorable members. I second Honorable Bryant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ganjo. Honorable Paulsen, you third hand.
Yeah, I echo the sentiments, although it's not necessary, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, honorable members. Without further ado, I believe that each one of us have a copy of the agenda, but I will just present it for formal adoption. Or there it's being flagged. It's opening and welcome, apologies, adoption of the agenda, briefing by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, the overview by the Minister, the existing waste streams, general and hazardous in the Republic, respective waste streams generation and management, including quantity generated, imported or exported, recycled or recovered, treated and disposed, etc. The next item would be questions and discussions. The third item would be briefing by South African Local Government Association on Local Government Support Program on the waste sector. The next item, number 4, will be discussions and questions. I have been briefed that we'll defer the 4th item, the consideration adoption of minutes, to the meeting scheduled to take place on Friday, and then we'll get the adjournment. Can we officially get the mover of the agenda?
I'll move to
Mover for
adopt.
adoption.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Honorable Phillips. Can we get the second, honorable members?
Seconded, Honorable Chair. Kancho.
Thank you, Honorable Kancho. With that being said, I think I had already given the brief on why am I requested to chair a meeting, which would necessarily be my opening remarks. Let's continue with the business of today. Chilega, do we have official apologies so that they are on record?
We have an apology of the DG, Acting Chair. Ms. Chabalala.
We have noted the apology of the chair and that of the DG. Any other apologies? You spoke about people who are flying.
Oh, okay. Honorable Mbata, Honorable Mchunu, and Honorable Chapa.
All right. I guess, can I check with honorable members if there are other apologies?
Honorable Chairperson, good morning.
Or other than that, we're all here.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable C.
Yes, to the Minister, all officials and all colleagues. I will be kind of in and out because I'll have to go to the Speaker's office a bit later, but for most of the meeting, I will be in. Thank you.
Noted, Honorable Singh. Can I check if there are other apologies?
Chair, colleagues from Salga. May I render an apology from Salga, Chair? It's Kolisa from Salga.
Are you representing Salga?
Salga, yes, Chair.
Okay. Who's not here?
It's the member of the NEC responsible for the environmental sector. I wish to render an apology for.
I take it that we'll be able to get the report from you, the presentation.
Yes, you will, Chair. The management of Salga is here.
Honorable Minister, it is now your turn. Can I invite you to give us welcoming input and introduce your team?
Good morning, Chair. Greetings to the Deputy Minister and to all honourable members online, as well as representatives from Salga. Honourable Chair, I'm together with DDG Mamokhala Musekeni, and she has other officials with her. I see Khato Mokwena. I think, Honourable Chair, the important issue for honourable members to understand is that waste, like many pieces of environmental legislation, is a concomitant function in terms of our constitution, which means that national government, provincial government, and local government all have responsibilities with regard to the collection and management of waste. The primary function at national level is to set policy, but also to issue licenses for various categories for the disposal and management of various categories of waste. And DDG Mamkhala will explain that to the honourable members. Obviously, all honourable members would have a lot of concerns about the way in which waste is managed in our country and the fact that we still have between 25 and 30% of households in our country that do not have regular waste collection and waste disposal. And the consequence of that, Honourable Modise, is that people are forced to engage in their own waste disposal mechanisms. And this obviously leads to the widespread problem we have of illegal dumping. We have been working together with SALGA to look at how, and provincial government, to look at how we can improve waste collection in municipalities. And no doubt we will discuss that matter as well today. It's not an easy question because it also relates to the issue of licensed landfills. It relates to the issue of the viability of waste collection, particularly in rural areas that are quite far-flung. But it also relates to the financial viability of municipalities. So we can understand that the difficulties we face around waste management in this country are complex issues. And I think it's very important that honourable members get a good understanding of them. I'm going to pause there, Honourable Modise, and I'm going to hand over to DDG Musekeni, who will be doing the input. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. DDG Musekeni.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, Minister and Deputy Minister. Thank you for the opportunity. We saw a slideshow. Thank you. In terms of the presentation for today, I will be talking to the overview with regard to the waste streams that are generated in the country and how we have fared with regard to their broader management, both general and hazardous, and some of the regulations and other measures that we are using to manage these waste streams. And this is also part of our State of Waste report, which I'll also touch on as per the request that came from the Portfolio Committee. The Strategic Intervention Plan, which is part of our implementation plan of the National Waste Management Strategy, is what I will also take you through in terms of the 3 pillars that we are working on. The next slide. What is key and important to understand with regard to the management of waste is that we need to be clear, what do we mean by waste? We do have a definition which has been revised a few times already, and even with the current NEMLA 4, we have looked into improving the definition. It's critical that we note that any substance, material, or object that is unwanted, rejected, abandoned by its holder, it's something that would fall into the definition. And what I need to underline or emphasize as part of that part of the definition is that this material can be reused, recycled, or recovered. So, of course, some of the waste that leaks into the environment as part of the litter, some of that waste can be reused, recycled. But for the purposes of managing the impacts that this waste causes on the environment, it's important that we define it and such that we can put control measures to be able to manage this. The definition also further provides for measures in which could be used to exclude or exempt, which is measures that are applicable. We've got exclusion regulations wherein based on the risk assessment methodology, some of this waste, if it has gone rigorous analysis and we know the site-specific considerations where it will be managed, then we can consider to exclude that particular waste. So this definition also assists us in that respect. Key regulations that we also use linked to our definition and classification are the regulations of 2013, waste classification and management regulations. And on the waste classification, it means this regulation assists us to establish whether a waste is hazardous based on the nature of its environmental hazardous properties. We do have hazard classes, and also depending on the degree or severity of the hazard that it poses. So those are critical considerations when we have to classify whether waste is general or hazardous. The next slide. In terms of Annexure 1 from the waste classification and management regulations, we find the list in terms of what is considered to be within the general waste. It includes domestic waste, business waste, not containing hazardous waste, the non-infectious animal carcasses, garden waste, waste packaging, waste tires, building and demolition waste, and excavated earth material not containing waste. On the other side, hazardous waste, waste products that are containing asbestos waste, PCBs, chemicals, polychlorobiphenyl waste, or PCB containing waste expired or spoiled. Mixed waste as well, which also can contain hazardous waste. Under precautionary principle, we categorize it under hazardous waste, and also healthcare risk waste generated from healthcare facilities falls under hazardous waste. On the next slide, we also give in brief some of the regulations that we use in terms of assisting us with management of the various waste streams. Of critical importance is waste information. For us to be able to manage a particular waste stream, we need to have data and information about its generation and the quantities that are generated. So we do have waste information regulations that also govern the reporting that stakeholders, whether it's generators, that they need to submit relevant information through the systems that have been developed. I've also mentioned the waste classification and management regulations. We do have residue stockpiles and residue deposits. In 2003, back then, we also had plastic carrier bags and flat bags, which are still applicable today. And we are also working with the National Treasury with regard to the levy on plastic bags. Waste tires, we do have the waste tire regulations, which were last amended in 2017. And there are current amendments that are being considered. And that also has got the link with the tire levy through National Treasury's Customs and Excise. We also have regulations on the prohibition of use of asbestos and manufacturing of asbestos-containing materials. And we also have exclusion regulations, which also enable particular waste streams that have gone through a risk assessment to be excluded from the definition once we have established how they will be managed and that the receiving environment won't be compromised. We also have import and export of waste, which also link up to the multilateral environmental agreement with regard to the Basel Convention on the transboundary movement of waste. So those are some of the broader regulations that we do have. On the next slide, we also have various norms and standards as part of us managing the various waste streams. And we've also set up thresholds such that we also manage some of the administrative burden that could accompany the management of waste streams, such that some thresholds can be managed through norms and standards. And for those, we do have various norms and standards for that purpose. The assessment of waste landfill disposal, we do have domestic waste collection standards, which mainly the municipalities, local government uses in terms of the standards for provision of refuse collection. We also have norms and standards on the disposal of waste to landfill, the remediation of contaminated land and soil quality, on the storage of waste, on the extraction, flaring, and recovery of landfill gas, the scrapping or recovery of motor vehicles, as well as sorting, shredding, grinding, crushing, screening, chipping, or baling of general waste. And of late, organic waste, you will see when we go into the various quantities that on a general waste stream, it's the dominant waste stream that is being generated, and we've enabled the use of norms and standards on organic waste composting together with the waste management activity list. Currently in this financial year, we are finalizing the organic waste treatment norms and standards, which these ones, they will assist us with regard to biogas generation and those type of measures in terms of diverting of waste. On the next slide, with regard to the information management that relates to the waste that is generated, we do have the state of waste report, and the latest, which is available in the public. We are generating as a country in the region of 107 million tons on an annual basis. And according to our reporting, we are diverting approximately 21% of that. So the balance is what gets to our landfill sites. Our drive, our aim is to increase the portion that gets diverted through the various measures that we have. On the next slide, just to talk to the state of waste report, the recent one, which was released based on the 2018 data, it's not necessarily comparable to the previous one, which was released in 2011, the baseline report, because the methodology that we had used in terms of the 2018 report is different, but also a key consideration is that the definition of waste had also changed in the process. So the matter of byproducts that are not excluded from the definition of waste is also a consideration. The state of waste also follows the approach that is used in the state of environment, the environmental outlook report, wherein the principles of looking into the driving forces, which considers population growth, the pressures that are placed on the resource because of the increase in consumption and the waste generation, the state, air, water, and soil quality impacts, the impacts on health, biodiversity loss, and the economics, and the responses in terms of what are we doing as a country to address the waste problem. So that's how we, those are the aspects that we consider. In terms of what, the next slide, the state of waste on a high level, what it tells us with regard to the general waste that is being generated on the pie chart, you can see that the blue portion reflects the organic waste, which is the dominating waste stream that is generated under the category of general waste, 34%. And based on that, it also, maybe what, first let me touch on what is included in that organic waste such that it's clearer. So the organic waste includes biomass. So the industries such as sugar mills, sawmills, paper and pulp, as part of their production of plant-based materials, they also generate this organic waste, which is biomass, which is the bigger portion. But also from our own households, we do have the garden waste included in that portion, as well as the food waste that we generate at a household level. So it is considered a part of that organic waste portion. The other waste, bigger portion that is generated, we have construction and demolition waste also being part of the bigger portion of the waste streams, municipal waste. Slag as well from some of the industrial processes, bottom ash as well. It's part of those that have been classified to be general wastes because they would not be containing hazardous aspects. So those are some of the waste streams under general waste. The next table, we were asked to be very clear with regard to, in terms of these various waste streams, how are we managing them, what portions are being imported, exported, and storage as well, recycling, and what gets to finally reach our landfill disposal sites. So based on the table, there we could see the various different types of general waste that is being generated, and maybe of critical importance, maybe just to start off on a high level first, is that the last column, which indicates what actually gets to our landfill sites and is disposed of through landfilling. We can see that on a general waste side, 65% of that generated waste gets to be landfilled. And if we look into the highest portions that are generated, we've talked to organic waste, GW20, we can see that half of that organic waste still gets to landfill sites in terms of the final disposal. Meanwhile, 49% gets to be recycled and recovered. So there is still room to improve in terms of our interventions on organic waste. Also construction and demolition waste also. It's a key waste stream, wherein only 52% of that is recycled. So there's the other 48%, which we can still improve on that. There are other waste streams, paper, plastic, glass, metals. Most of that also do have the packaging component. Also, there is room for improvement, and those are also part of the prioritized waste streams that currently we are using extended producer responsibility measures to grow what gets recycled and what gets collected for recovery. So that is the breakdown. I think with regard to, we could see that some of the waste streams that also gets imported and exported because we do have facilities that beneficiate waste through the Basel Convention. There is facilitation working with ITEC on the importation and exportation of some of those waste materials for beneficiation. Okay, moving on to the next slide, which goes into the hazardous waste streams. Also, in this hazardous waste stream, we can see that fly ash dominates the hazardous waste stream that is generated 63.9%. We do have other waste streams that come second, bottom ash. Because of our energy generation linked to the use of coal, so ash becomes one of our biggest waste streams that are generated. So we do have that as part of the characterization of our waste streams. But we also have other mercury-containing waste, waste oils as well, that are also generated as part of wastes that are generated through various industrial processes. Maybe just to go into the detail in terms of the next slide, that also goes into a deep dive with regard to specific waste streams and how they are managed. Hopefully you can be able to read that most of the hazardous waste streams as compared to the general waste streams, you can see that 92.7% gets to landfill sites. So it is also a class of waste that we would want to work more on in terms of interventions, and maybe just to pick on some of the waste streams that already we are working to divert. That's the HW18 there, waste electrical and electronic equipment, just to indicate that the extended producer responsibility as well has noted that there are opportunities in that particular waste stream. And when you look into the figures, the reported figures there, you see that the disposal that gets to landfill, 3.9%, but there is room to ensure that we are able to recycle, and those EPR schemes that are currently setting up will enable us to improve on that. And the other one that I could reflect on, HW03 on batteries. We see that the recycling there, it's high, 90%. Those that have been to change their batteries, they know that there's a deposit on those batteries, and that has been working well even without a regulated or a mandatory scheme on to for us to be able to reach those high recycling rates of the batteries. On the waste oils as well, we currently have, you can see the 80% recycling there. It's one waste stream that we are currently in this financial year, we would be putting online in terms of EPR schemes to also ensure that we don't have free riders, because yes, there are those manufacturers that have voluntarily worked well to manage the lubricant oils, but us working through the Section 18 will ensure that those that were not part of those schemes also take measures to divert their waste. So generally, these are some of the waste streams that we are working on to ensure that we increase. Sewage sludge as well, HW20 there. It's one of those that, as part of the organic waste treatment, the opportunities for energy generation from biogas, that would also ensure that the sludge aspects, because then it's part of organic waste, that would also be diverted away from landfill. So next slide, just some of the analysis, mainly to say, yes, we do have a big volume on the hazardous waste that is being landfilled, and on the general waste, 65%. And it would mean our interventions, including policy, regulatory, and other market-based interventions, needs to take cognizance of this reality. On the organic waste side, we've seen that the norms and standards and the waste activity list, wherein it's part of removing the administrative burden that those that would require a fully fledged waste management license, they don't need to go through that stringent process, because now they could be able to employ those. We also have exclusions that covered waste streams such as ash, slag, and biomass, and we've had about 3 sets that have been excluded since 2019. So those are also assisting us to divert waste away from landfill. Also, the Waste Flagship Program, with the assistance of the Green Climate Fund, also assisting municipalities, 30 of which are now part of the program, and we were able to get some funding for feasibility in terms of setting up some of the organic waste treatment infrastructure that would assist at municipal level to divert organic waste. For construction and demolition waste, we are also working on the green public procurement, which would also assist through our public works infrastructure programs. We would be able to use the government purchasing power to drive the demand for CND waste to then go back into the building of new public works infrastructure. So yes, there are also budgetary constraints in terms of some limited investment into the source separation of waste, enhance some of the EPR policy wherein we are bringing together the private sector as well as local government to work together for those prioritized waste streams through the support of buyback centers that some of which are owned by the municipality, but even those that are owned by the private sector, ensuring that we are able to divert some of the prioritized packaging waste. And that also provides an opportunity for the private sector to take that financial responsibility through the EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility fees that they are setting aside for the management of their products when they reach end of life. The next slide just also gives the high level details of the organic waste program that we are working on as a department together with the DBSA, which is also sponsored by the Green Climate Fund. And we have initiated the full feasibility from 2018 till 2021. Some of our municipalities, 30 of them, are also part of those that would be benefiting, because the scope of the project will look into composting at a broad scale, municipal level, anaerobic digestion, biomass pre-treatment, which would assist us at a broader scale to divert organic waste, as it's one of the waste streams that are generated in big volumes that, if not managed well, they are reaching our landfill site and consuming the airspace. The next slide, in terms of our policy approach, the implementation plan, we've got 3 pillars from the National Waste Management Strategy. The first pillar, waste minimization. Our target is that within 5 years, we need to have a diversion of 45%, and we will grow that to 55 in 10 years and 70 in 15 years. The second pillar talks to the waste services, effective and sustainable waste services. Minister referred to some of the households that are still struggling and not receiving regular refuse collection from municipalities. What is also important is compliance enforcement and also raising awareness. Some of the waste infrastructure, the landfill sites, they are not complying to the standards, and that also poses a risk to the environment. And hence, we need to ensure that we strengthen our compliance and enforcement, but also awareness generally, general public, the culture, the behavior towards waste littering, and to ensure that we limit pollution. Just on the next slide, the pillar 1, there are detailed activities on waste minimization. The first area, which I did already touch on, we do have the extended producer responsibility policy. So we are building on identifying products that we will be putting under the EPR schemes. We've started with paper packaging and some of the single-use products, or also electrical and electronic equipment. We've started already. We are on an annual basis increasing those products that would need to be managed. I've talked to the oils, the pesticides, and the batteries. So those are some of the key policy actions that we are putting in place. We are also working with the National Cleaner Production Center through the industrial symbiosis across different provinces. We are upscaling what has been initiated, working with science and innovation through the implementation implementation of the waste research, development, and innovation. The next slide, in terms of still on waste minimization, food waste also, working with the stakeholders there as part of the food chain. We've worked with Consumer Goods Council on behalf of retailers to ensure that we minimize the food that gets, food waste that gets to landfill. That also talks to some of the agro-processing that needs to be employed to ensure that we also avoid the food getting wasted. The next slide also talks to what goes in and promoting the demand for the recycled material. As part of the EPR, also as part of the plastic bag regulations, we have also introduced recycled content in some of the products. This is very key to ensure that for the waste that has been collected, we are able to ensure that there is market for that waste. So most products that now are going into looking into how the product design would have that key recycled content that would also enable the sustainability of material recovery facilities, and ensure that even as part of public procurement, I did mention the construction and demolition waste, the recycled content would then go into building of new infrastructure. The next slide on waste minimization also talks to the partnership that we will work with schools as well. It would be part of organic waste management, wherein the school nutrition program would also make use of biogas as part of diversion of waste. We're also looking into working with DSI as part of promoting research and innovation in the waste sector, looking into some of the waste products that would then develop the innovation in the sector. Next slide, key to the delivery of services, separation of waste at source, working closely with the municipalities as well as the informal sector. We do have the integration of waste pickers being key. It is also part of the collaboration that is embedded in our EPR schemes, given that most of the waste, especially packaging waste, we are able to reach high recycling rates because of the contribution of the informal sector in that space. Also linked to that, we know that at a household level, we do have some hazardous waste that are generated. So it becomes key that we are able to work with the municipalities in terms of then how do we ensure that those particular hazardous waste streams, it could be medication and others, how do we ensure that at a household level, the strategy is very clear on how the hazardous waste needs to be managed and disposed of. So we've worked with municipalities in terms of ensuring that there is a strategy, and some of the municipalities have started to implement that. The next slide also talks to the planning capacity of municipalities. Municipalities are required to have integrated development plans. At a sectoral level, we also require that they have integrated waste management plans, and that would provide the details in terms of the infrastructure and the level of services that needs to be provided to ensure that we are able to manage waste effectively. This would also cover the management of municipal landfill sites, also ensuring that they are able to provide for the yellow fleet that is necessary. So this is part of what is considered when we look into effective waste management planning. Linked to that, we have seen that some of the products, we've had questions on them, the diapers, disposable nappies, and we've seen that these products are rich, they have high caloric value, meaning they can go into the manufacturing of alternative fuel, which is one project that we have started to work with exploring with the manufacturers in terms of ensuring that we are able to set up systems to enable the collection of this particular waste, and we should be able to divert it. The next slide, which is also on compliance, enforcement, and awareness, it is critical that we strengthen the awareness generally to also citizens. We've seen that the behavior we would need to raise education levels and awareness to ensure that the culture of littering and illegal dumping, we are able to address that. We've also seen that communities have been active in the space, community-based organizations that are also assisting us with changing the behavior, mobilizing action to ensure that our communities are clean. So we also are exploring some of the support mechanisms that we need to afford these structures, given that they are also contributing towards protection of the environment. Also working with the enforcement agencies, given that some of this littering and illegal dumping, we need to also send out a strong message in terms of enforcing bylaws at a municipal level, and also the in terms of our Waste Act, in terms of preventing illegal dumping. So working together with the SAPS and the NPA to bring those that contravening the laws to book and work with them to ensure that we change behavior. So that is also part of our action plan. So maybe in conclusion, with the next slide is for us to recommend that the portfolio committee notes the implementation of the regulatory and other measures to increase the diversion of waste from landfill. We do have various regulatory measures, EPR, including other regulations, exclusions that are assisting us to manage waste, the various waste streams. And we also are working with the Green Climate Fund to ensure that we also attract donor funding to assist us, especially at municipal level, to divert organic waste from landfill. The other roles, I think it will come on Friday into the specific details on the roles of the different stakeholders in the sector. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Msekeni. Members, that is the presentation from the department. May I now invite you to engage the presentation by show of hands. See the hand of Honorable Bryant, the hand of Honorable Paulsen, the hand of Honorable Phillips, and the hand of Honorable Weber. In that order. Oh, the last one will be the hand of Honorable C.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, thank you to the presenter for the presentation. I think a lot of detailed information in there on the current status of a lot of the projects, and I think some of them are progressing reasonably well. But there are still huge concerns around, in particular, the recycling of not only hazardous waste, but waste in general. The first question is just in terms of the overall capacity for recycling plastic waste. I know there were discussions or proposals last year for us to be importing plastic waste from other countries, possibly the developed world, for us to be importing plastic waste and recycling it here. If we're looking at the very small percentage of plastic waste we're currently able to recycle, is that a realistic goal? And how would we find ways to increase our capacity to recycle in the face of importing plastic waste from other countries? In terms of slide 12, it says that 6% of the hazardous waste is currently recycled. And then further, you say that 73% of batteries are recycled. Now, is that 73% of the 6%? Or is that 73% of all batteries in the country? Because I find that hard to believe that 73% of our batteries are recycled. I know most people tend to throw their old batteries away, and there really aren't a lot of hazardous waste disposal sites around. So if you can just expand on that statistic there. And then the last question for this round, just in terms of home composting, this really is a quick win, and it's something that can reduce the amount of waste going to landfill quite considerably. I myself have a home composter, and all my vegetable waste goes in there, and it really does reduce the amount of waste that I chuck away when the bin collectors come around. I see you've mentioned one or two ideas, but I would very strongly suggest that you look at what the City of Cape Town's rolled out in terms of its pilot home composting project, which it's rolled out to a number of households across the Cape Town metro. I think it's something that can be replicated in other parts of the country, and it really can help us to reduce waste in a reasonably cost-effective manner. And sorry, just one last point, Chairperson. There wasn't much mention in terms of overall landfill capacity. Unless I missed it, but I went back through the slides to see. I couldn't spot it anyway. The real question is, do we have enough landfills to cater for the ever-increasing amounts of waste that are being produced across the country? I know that landfills do have a lifespan, and at some stage they have to be closed off and new ones established. Do we have enough space at present in terms of the capacity and in terms of plans to build new landfills going forward? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Bryant. The next speaker.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation. Chairperson, in terms of these landfill sites, how many of them are private and state-controlled, and because it's quite a substantial industry and with great potential and untapped, of course, and then also the location of waste recycling sites, and how close is it to where the majority of people produce waste, or where there's a high concentration of people. But I think, Chairperson, more importantly, in terms of the National Environmental Management Waste Act of 2008, the department is supposed to have a national waste management strategy, and if you look at the goals of that, or the framework of those 8 goals of the National Waste Management Strategy, I'd like to know how the department is managing the implementation of that framework. And I think regular updates with proper details about implementation would be a lot more useful for this committee in terms of assessing the effectiveness of our waste management strategy, and that way we can constantly revise the way we work in terms of making it more effective. But right now, this is something that exists on paper, it seems, and not something that's implemented by the department. There was some signs of good work being done in terms of the reuse, recycling, and recovery of waste. But we need to know how effective the department is in implementing the strategy to achieve those 8 goals. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Paulson. The next speaker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. Some of my questions have already been covered by my colleague, Dave Bryant. I would just like to know of the amount of waste which we import at the moment, how much is dumped and how much is beneficiated? And then with companies that have been given grants, especially in the e-waste area, if the department could perhaps make available to us, I realize you won't have it now, but if you could forward it to us via the chair or the secretary, that would be amazing. The amount of companies who have grants to do recycling, and then for each company, what is the total worth of the contract? How much money has been paid to date? How much is due? And what is the date for the balance of the money to be paid? And also any targets that are required by the company to meet. And then I'd just like to also raise an issue. I wonder how much of our parliamentary waste is recycled. We all get plastic bottles of water at every sitting. How much of those are recycled? And then in the parliamentary villages, there are no recycling stations. If we are not recycling as the leaders in the country, how can we expect other people to be recycling? So that is something that I would like, if we can address that with Public Works, that would be amazing. And then on the littering, there's this urban legend that if you litter, you are creating jobs. And it would be really nice if we could address that particular urban legend by showing how much money it costs, how little people who've got a job to collect waste actually benefit from it, and how much more they could benefit from, and how much more dignified it would be for Gogo to be part of a recycling group rather than having to bend over and pick up waste in the streets, where we are actually uplifting people. And I understand there's nothing wrong with being a waste picker-upper. We need them and they occur everywhere. But sometimes we are employing people to pick up waste who are really could be used in a more beneficial way for themselves and their families. And I think that we need to find a way of making people aware of the fact that just because you're littering doesn't mean that it's actually creating a job for somebody that is sustainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Phillips. Honorable Weber.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if you can hear me. It seems like I'm having trouble with my signal. Am I audible?
You are solely clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this presentation. I think it solves a lot of issues for me. Chair, I want to first of all reach on to my colleague Dave, Honorable Bryant. Landfill sites is a problem, especially in the province where I come from. I can name you the municipalities like Lekwa, Tabacheo, where actual waste are now within the surroundings, like in the center of a residential area, because there's no place to put the waste anymore. So it is really managed very badly. So landfill sites is a problem, and that is something that seriously have to be looked in, but that's just on the sideline. I am going to ask questions that I'm unclear on. So it's questions for clarity, and it's regarding the disposable nappies. You classified it as a hazardous household waste. But when I look at slide 10, and this is where I need the clarification, under what waste type did you classify or does the disposable nappies fall under? And then on this slide, you said 92.7% of waste it gets to the landfill site. Now, I know for sure if you look at disposable nappies, that 92.7% definitely do not get to the landfill site. This is one of our biggest serious litter, and the disposable nappies is something that we have to take out of our dams and the rivers, because it actually stops the flowing of it in especially our smaller streams and things like that. And I would like to, if it's not falling under one of these waste types, I think the seriousness of disposable nappies, I would like to suggest that if it's not under one of these waste types, that we put an individual type so we can monitor disposable nappies much more clearly and to see what the effect it is. Then I want to ask, disposable nappies is something that we can do something about. Like tires, nappies is a definite need. People need to travel, they need to get somewhere, and people have babies and the waste needs to go somewhere. But what are we doing to reduce this? And what can we do to reduce this? Because the companies that's involved is really not of any plan to reduce it, because it's a manufacturing for them. So what can we do to start trying from a legislative point of view, trying to start reducing the nappies, because this is a serious concern? And then my last question is, what happens with the nappies when they get to the landfill site? Because they're not going to it's about 100 years before they will dispose. What is happening to this? What do we do with this? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Weber. Honorable C.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I have quite a few questions, but thank you for the presentation, to the department and to the Minister. I just want to follow up on Honorable Paulson about private waste management sites and waste recycling sites. I want to know if there's any kind of incentivization for these people, because the other day I saw a notice in my own constituency where somebody opened a waste recycling sort of plant. Now, is there any incentivization from the department for these private sector people to do what they're doing? Then on the question of the Section 18 notice for single-use products, can I just be reminded which are these? They're on slide 7. Then on slide 16, the challenge is local government. Not all of them are capacitated to deal with waste. And unfortunately, our national flower has become plastic bags. And it still is, although we got a cost for plastic bags and so on and so forth. And we still haven't got legislation yet to do away with them completely, like possibly Kenya has. So they have to have waste management officers in the municipality. Do we have an idea of how many of these what percentage of the local authorities that we have in the country have these waste management officers? And do they sort of adopt a performance management plan? Do they know what they're doing, when they're doing, in the area? Then on the question of the recovering waste. Now, I saw a very interesting video clip in a country, an international country, where people were putting cans into like an ATM machine. Well, not an ATM machine, but a kind of a machine where every time you put a particular product in, which was capable of being recycled, you collected money on the turn. I mean, do we want to look at these kinds of international ways of encouraging people to collect waste and get something for it? So waste becomes something that people can earn a living from. I don't know many that are doing that, but can we sort of go beyond just what is happening at the moment, particularly in the informal settlements? I mean, you see in the informal settlements, and I think the problem there largely, we say people litter. Yes, people do litter. All of us litter. Some people in urban areas throw things out of their car windows. But wherever they litter, is there provision for them to dump their litter? I mean, in the own area where I reside, there aren't these things that collect litter. These things come on the truck. I forget what you call them, and then there aren't sufficient bins in public places. So what are municipalities, and can the department do anything? Because I know the Honorable President of our country spoke about cleaning up cities in last year's SONA. What has been done? What has been done in that regard? The other question relates to landfills. Now, I think the presenter said, the DG said that about 108 tons of waste are currently being generated, and 21% of that ends up on landfills. Is there any particular standard, that we have that compares to international standards on how much of waste should be delivered to landfills, the capacity of landfills, etc.? And then the same thing applies to organic waste. Now, from the presentation, I see that the department's waiting approval, we are waiting approval of the Organic Waste Treatment Plan 2022. Now, when is that plan going to be finalized for a treatment plant? And then what will organic treatment plan propose? I mean, what is it that we're talking about when we talk about this plan? And then, of course, I spoke about municipalities, that, the Waste Flagship Program. But is there any monitoring of the performance of these municipalities? And waste will include not only your plastic bags, etc., but your hazardous waste. I think there's a serious concern about the transportation of hazardous waste and the number of plants that are available. Last week, Chairperson, you'll recall when we received a presentation on UPL, we were told that waste was being transported probably 600-700 kilometers per vehicle from KZN to another province. So what are we doing to encourage more of these kinds of disposable areas to be established, so it doesn't become a danger on the roads? Otherwise, you find that if something goes wrong with the truck and if there's an accident, then it becomes a hazard in itself. So those are some other questions for now. Thank you, Chairperson.
Sorry, Chair, just a quick order point, if possible.
Honorable Brian, order.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I'm sure Honorable Singh perhaps hasn't realised it, but he's got a political logo in the background of his Zoom, which I know is not supposed to be allowed. So maybe if he wants to put his blur on or something, just in case. Thanks, Chair.
But there's not a relevant political party. It's fine.
Chairperson,
that order is.
I didn't realize I'm sitting in my office. It's the first time I sit in my office, and this is my desk, and the frame is right behind me. But I'll see what I can do. I'll put my coat over it. Thank you. But I am IFP, proudly
Wonderful,
so.
wonderful. That's fine, Honorable C. That's fine. We'll discuss that a bit later. Let's move on. The order is sustained, Honorable Bryant. Those were the few hands that we had noted, colleagues.
I have,
From
sorry,
my
Chairperson, I have also raised my hand. I struggled earlier to, I was struggling with my gadget earlier, but I saw that you have not noticed that.
Yeah, no, I realize now, Honorable Ganjo. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you also for the presentation from the department. Chair, most of the things have been covered, more especially by Honorable Singh. Chair, it is true that our municipalities are culprits when it comes to waste management, and seemingly they do not have, they are struggling. Chair, for instance, from the municipality that I'm coming from, even their collection, their refuse collection days, you will find out that in one settlement, they don't come past weeks, and you will see that the communities are really filthy. And I think, Chair, we need to really ask the municipalities to take this issue of waste management seriously. Also, they must introduce the skip bins containers. I think it will assist them for our communities to dump their refuse. I was covered on the issue of landfill sites. We really need to know how many landfill sites that we have, and also the dumping sites, the municipality or metros, Chairperson, and also the distribution of black bags to our communities. Municipalities seem not to to do that. So that's why we see our communities filthy. Also enforcing of their bylaws, Chairperson. This issue of illegal dumping, it is really becoming a nerve, and as the communities, we need also to have some sort of awarenesses so that we can educate our communities on how to take care of their refuse. And also we need to go to schools to make some sort of awarenesses so that they can know how to keep their communities safe and clean. Thank you, Chairperson. I was covered in most of the issues that were raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ganjo. I suspect that was the last hand. Honorable members, are these the old hands? Honorable Paulsen, Honorable Phillips, Honorable C. Are these the old hands or follow-ups?
No, it's an old end.
All right. Just from my side, three quick issues.
Sorry, Chair, mine is an old hand with a new picture behind. I hope you can see that one. Welcome. Thank you. Had to move the frame.
No, we know the changes, Honorable C. We were going to congratulate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just from my side, three issues quickly. I just want to check with the department where does radioactive waste that derives from the Kuber nuclear power station fit in the current waste classification in South Africa? How do we classify it? Where does it fit? Two, does the department have a long-term plan to deal with mine dump waste that originated from derelict or ownerless mines, for lack of a better word? Although mine dumps might come across and appear as the responsibility of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, but they are still waste, and obviously they are contaminating the land, the water, the rivers, and so on. But I'm just checking if the department has a plan of dealing with derelict and ownerless waste from those mines. Lastly, how does the department, does the department have an agreement? Or how do you ensure that this agreement, I saw it on slide, I think slide 22. How do you ensure that this agreement between the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, South African Police Services, the National Prosecuting Authority, you have an agreement on increasing enforcement of Waste Act and municipal bylaws relating to pollution, littering, illegal dumping, and so on. How do you ensure that this agreement is enforced? Have you met perhaps with your counterparts or these other entities, especially in poor municipalities, in particular where I come from? I think Honorable Ganjo touches it, Honorable Singh also touches it. I think Honorable Weber also spoke about it. I'm just checking, is the department having a plan of enforcing this agreement? How far are you with that? Thank you very much. Is it the minister first?
Facebook now because I wanted to call you, but after my Zoom meeting, because I'm actually in the Zoom meeting now.
Minister, is it you first or?
Thanks very much, Chairperson. I think that most of the questions DDG Musakeni will handle. There was just this question of the parliamentary waste. And in the first year when I was appointed in 2019, I actually wrote to the Speaker and I asked that the Parliament consider replacing plastic bottles, plastic water bottles with glass water bottles. I didn't really get a satisfactory response. And I would just want to appeal to the honourable members to raise this with the Parliamentary Affairs Committee, because I think that single-use plastics are an issue. Although plastic water bottles have the best rate of recycling in the country, I still think that the less single-use plastics we introduce into the environment, the better. And I do agree with honourable members that it would be good that we introduce recycling at source in the parliamentary villages. So I will, you will understand this is a separation of powers issue, and we would welcome the honourable members talking to the Members' Affairs Committee about these important matters. I think that I'm going to hand over to Mamokgale to deal with the questions, and then we'll see if there's anything further at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Starting with the question from Honorable Bryant on the capacity to recycle plastic waste. Maybe first and foremost, it's important to recognize that the source separation of waste plays a key role in terms of the recycling value chain. So as part of increasing that capacity to recycle plastic waste, hence the intervention of extended producer responsibility, wherein there would be investment in the collection aspect of the value chain to minimize contamination. So yes, in terms of maybe now and history, we've had an increased importation of plastic waste because our collection systems were not developed. But with this EPR, that would also ensure that we invest in the collection system. We are foreseeing that our importation would go down, given that we will have a source separation of plastic waste, and that would decrease, the demand coming from outside. And what on plastic waste, we importing separated plastic waste, which is seen as a resource that goes into the making of new products. I will give Michelle to talk to the batteries aspect later on, but Honorable Bryant also commented on composting. So on our side, what we have done is more on the regulatory framework with regard to composting, making it easy to also enable composting at an industrial scale at municipal level. So yes, we've seen a number of municipalities also going into the space of home composting. We are encouraging that. It's part of separation of waste at source. But I think when Salga and the colleagues come, they will talk more about the enforcement of the bylaws in terms of realizing that source separation, because it's done at a municipal level. On the question of the landfill capacity, do we have enough landfill airspace to cater for the generated waste? I can talk to that in Gauteng, for example. We know that the city of Johannesburg is under pressure in terms of the remaining landfill airspace, and hence we are working with them and the province as well as the infrastructure agency to look into also the alternative waste treatment technology, given that space is a key issue in Johannesburg. So it is an area of concern. However, both the municipality and the province are looking into the different ways of managing that challenge. What also exacerbates this area in terms of landfill capacity, I think one honorable member referred to it, is that the operation of the landfill sites is key, because it is meant to have the required equipment, landfill compactors, to ensure that on a daily basis the landfill is covered and the waste is compacted. So if that operation is not done effectively, it also reduces the timeline of the landfill. So those are some of the critical, and when provinces are going to talk to that role on Friday, it becomes key, especially for municipal landfill sites, because provinces have that role of enforcing compliance with regard to the standards for landfill sites. So it's one key area that on Friday, when provinces talk, they will touch on that together with the compliance levels. In terms of Honorable Paulson, the National Waste Management Strategy, I think Honorable Paulson also took it back to the 2011 strategy. In 2020, we also had Cabinet approve the reviewed strategy, which gave the 3 pillars that are guiding our delivery. So what we are doing, we are making use of our IGR structures. We have MinTech structure, working group 8, wherein we do have the waste management officers, which have been appointed at provincial level. And currently at this stage, we do have the waste management officers of the metros also forming part of the structures. So SALGA as well is part of the working group 8. So on a quarterly basis, we meet to assess progress. So on an annual basis, as a collective, we come up with a plan for the year. And this plan is aligned to what is expected of us coming from the strategy. So in that way, we try and manage across the sector if we are getting to the deliverables. Honorable Phillips raised a question on the amount of companies that receive grants. Honorable Phillips, we have a recycling enterprise support program, and we could provide this information in terms of historically the companies that were awarded this support and the targets as per their the service level agreements. How did they fare? So this we can provide in writing. And then Honorable Weber, in terms of what are we doing with regard to disposable nappies? We are currently consulting as well, because we agree that we need to strengthen the measures. Of course, of key importance is the responsibility of the respective municipalities to collect refuse from the households, but we've seen that where the services are not there, we've seen that this particular product leaks into the environment, and we have seen engagements with regard to how can we bring the producers of this particular disposable nappies to take more responsibility. And we are looking into whether an extended producer responsibility could be relevant or not, but it is still early stages. We have seen that they have worked on investing into a refuse-derived fuel, wherein some of these products, if they are collected, then they would go into making a refuse-derived fuel processed into products that can be used for energy. Honorable Sin, in terms of private waste management incentives. So Honorable Sin, some of this could be the buyback centers. Some of these buyback centers are privately owned. Some are owned by the municipality. So from selling of the recyclables, there is an incentive there, but also if some of those products are part of the prioritized products in terms of the EPR schemes, then those products can then, the producers could look into whether if this collection contributes to reaching the targets, what type of incentives could be afforded to the private waste management companies. I think we will also submit the waste management officers in terms of percentage for municipalities that have been assigned as reported by the provincial waste management officers. We can provide this information in writing. As part of what has been done on cleaning, as part of our environmental programs, we do have the Good Green Deeds program. It was more aligned to the Lend a Hand to Mamina, and it utilized the mass public employment, the EPWP, wherein some of the participants that were placed in certain local municipalities in the districts were also contributing at the level of the municipality towards cleaning in those particular spaces. Honorable Chairperson, radioactive waste is not covered under the mandate of the NEMA and the Waste Act. There is a separate act under the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy that manages that, and they also have their own classification. They manage that the radioactive waste accordingly from that perspective, the authorization, licensing, and so forth. The department, however, we are part of that management through two colleagues that sit on the board as part of the legislation for the National Radioactive Waste Institute. I'm going to ask Michelle Govender, the Chief Director responsible for hazardous waste and licensing, to come in on the batteries, the percentage that the question that Honorable Bryant raised, and after Ndate Kgauteng Mokoena, Chief Director responsible for policy, to come in on the mining waste. Through you, Chair. Michelle.
Thank you, DDG, and thank you, Chair. Just on the question raised by Honorable Bryant, the figures that are on slide 12 at this stage comprise not all of the batteries that exist in the sector at the moment. This is the bulk of it is your lead acid batteries, which has an intrinsic value in there. So this is why at least 90%, if not more, are being recycled. The batteries like your dry cell, which you and I would use, or your batteries from your phones, that is the process that Mamkhala was referring to earlier, where we have a process which is happening, where we want to have the battery, the portable battery sector, have their own extended producer responsibility notice and plan to get rid of the batteries from household level and other levels where the value of that battery is actually very low. The recycling, it's very difficult to recycle. So we are pushing for that sector to now make sure that they treat those batteries. So to answer your question, then that 73% focuses on mostly your lead acid batteries. Then another question that Honorable Bryant had was talking about plans for new landfill sites. And yes, there are plans in various provinces to handle the waste. However, we do come up against challenges. And I'll give you one example, which is the Western Cape, which applied for a regional landfill site, and it's now more than 20 years. And the process is still stalling because of appeals from communities not wanting these landfill sites in certain areas. So that puts pressure on the existing system as well. But we also, through Working Group 8, have pushed that we must not look at landfills per se, but rather waste parks and regional sites that can handle or service more than one municipality or more than one province as the need arises. And those waste parks would not just deal with disposal, but they would deal with recycling, recovery, to try and remove the valuable components, and then end up with a situation where only the residue gets disposed of. So those are things that are happening, but it is a challenge to get new landfills, and space is a constraint at this stage. Honorable Pawson asked a question about landfills, private versus public, in terms of how many. We have 7 privately owned landfill sites, and these are 6 highly hazardous sites, 1 Class B site, which handles the low level hazardous waste, and we have more than 630 municipal landfill sites, and some municipalities, I don't have the figures with me, but some municipalities do have hazardous cells within their landfill sites. For example, I'll just throw out Eden Municipality, which has one, the city of Cape Town has it. So that's what the figures are in terms of landfill sites that do exist. Honorable Phillips, you asked a question in terms of imported waste, how much of that is dumped, how much of that is beneficiated. We have 98% of the waste that is imported is actually recycled, recovered, or beneficiated, and we only have 2% that is dumped. Further, just to point out that the waste that is dumped, we only accepting accept waste from SADC countries which do not have specifically engineered landfill sites to be able to handle their waste, for example, asbestos. So we accept waste from there. And based on our bilaterals, we may accept waste from another country outside of SADC, but within Africa. But we do not accept waste from your OEWG or your Western countries, or countries that have the ability to design and implement their own systems. We do not accept waste from those countries for disposal at all. So it's pretty much just for Africa to help countries that do not have the capacity. The next question, I think, is the last one that Honorable Modise raised regarding what the long-term plan is for mine dump waste. I think this is something, as Honorable Modise said, it is part of what the Department of Mineral and Energy are looking at this stage. But from our side as a department, we have compiled what we call the residue deposits and stockpiled norms and standards, which pretty much looks at mine residue as a potential product rather than a waste, because there is potential beneficiation. But I think Gauta will raise that further. And then the final one that Honorable Modise raised was an agreement. Do we have an agreement with SAPS and NPA in terms of enforcing NEMWA or the Waste Act itself? The answer is yes. We do have a standard operating procedure with SAPS, with the the NPA, and we are prosecuting more and more transgressions in terms of the Waste Act. And there is a reporting system that's in place, which is run by our enforcement unit. But basically, it's a report that gives the compliance and enforcement status across the country in terms of cases. But just to indicate that yes, there is enforcement happening at national level as well as provincial and municipal level, because there are EMIs or green scorpions at all 3 levels of government that are dealing with municipal bylaws, the NEMA, NEMWA, and all of the other CEMAs that are in place. Thank you, Mawakala, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Michelle. And through you, Chair, Ndate Mokoena, just on the mining as we wrap up.
Good afternoon, good morning, Chair, Minister, honorable members and colleagues. A short intervention on the mine dams, looking at the question made by Honorable Chair around Gubach. It's safe to indicate that in terms of the applications for energy facilities, there will be an environmental management plan that gets developed, and when it's approved also indicating how the waste will be treated or managed. And because of the high radioactivity nature of the power station, as well as the nuclear waste, there is encapsulation, which is usually a recommended method of managing that waste. Is not 100% and directly treating, but is more encapsulating for safe storage and also to limit exposure to human beings as well as the environment at large. On the derelict and ownerless mine dams, it's a challenge, largely when we look at the number of dams or mines that are there, as well as the amount of work that is involved in terms of rehabilitation. But it's safe to say that we have, as part of the NEMLA 3, developed regulations for the management of mine residue deposit stockpiles, largely looking at the new mines and the new tailings facility that will develop as a result of new prospecting, exploration, as well as mining rights. But this does not talk to historical, because it doesn't apply retrospectively. On historical, there are programs in place, largely from our Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, on the rehabilitation of derelict and ownerless mines. Because of the cost as well as other associated challenges, because these, as is said, that they are derelict and ownerless, they then presents a challenge to the state on the rehabilitation programs that are conducted by the state, that they are now funded from the fiscal. So hence a challenge from that point of view, hence challenge that triggered a need for prioritization of those that are more detrimental than the others to firstly deal with, and that led to asbestos mine dams being those that are more critically and thoroughly dealt with at the beginning, while major systems and resources are put in place for other less toxic and those that are less threat to the environment and human beings. So it is work in progress. The regulations currently look at the new mines, while the rehabilitation program is looking at historical, but because of the volumes and the numbers of these dams, as well as the cost involved, there has been focus on asbestos mine dams, largely because those are almost everywhere, be it on the historical mines themselves or the towns that used to be historical mining towns that will have asbestos fibers all over in most areas that are exposed to the public and the community. Hence, those being prioritized, be it either on the roads that needs to be redone or paved because of the exposure of asbestos. And these are some of the programs that are taking place in as far as making interventions in that space around rehabilitation of derelict and ownerless mines. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, members and Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable members, may I check if there are any follow-ups? We have 10 minutes to spare before we go to the briefing by South African Local Government Association. Honorable Bryant, Honorable C.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, a couple of points here in response to the question, to the answers that have been given. In terms of the importation of plastic waste, last year it was reported that we imported almost 6,000 tons of plastic waste from other countries. And the reports that I've read do speak about the SADC countries, but they also mention Germany and China. It was quite explicitly stated by the presenter that we do not import. Can she please confirm that we only, because there seems to be allegations out there that if she's correct, are unfounded, that we are in fact importing from developed countries such as China and Germany. In terms of that industry in general as well, it does obviously generate money, some of which hopefully goes back into the fiscus. But what would happen to the contracts for that importation of plastic waste that currently exist? I know that it was stated that the intention is to move away from that and to start recycling our own waste. But I mean, surely one can't do this only by waste separation at dump sites. Should we not be doing a lot more to promote the collection of recycled waste, door-to-door separation and collection programs? I mean, it's actually quite crazy that 98% of the waste that's imported, we manage to recycle, but we manage to recycle less than 10% of our own plastic waste here. Something doesn't work out. And a lot of this plastic waste from South Africa is ending up in our oceans, which is causing serious devastation to our marine life. Thank you for the answer on the batteries. Just in terms of the new landfills, how many new sites have been identified in the discussions that were mentioned between the Gauteng provincial authorities and the city? How many sites have you identified during those discussions? Because you've mentioned those discussions were going on for quite a while. And where are those sites that have been identified? And then what is the plan for the Strandfontein landfill site? You mentioned earlier the Western Cape site. I assume that's the one that you're speaking about. 20 years is far too long to be waiting on an application, regardless of the number of objections that have come through from communities. Nobody wants a landfill site near to their home. So I think a decision has to be taken at some stage. We can't be waiting for another 20 years. And then just finally, the Minister's point around plastic bottles, we would 100% support her on eliminating plastic bottles and moving across to something more sustainable. We have some of the highest quality of drinking water in Cape Town. We can put that in jugs and drink it. Although I believe, after asking my chief whip this question, that the last time this was raised a couple of years back, they were informed that they were concerned that the bottles might be used as weapons for fighting. I think at the time, Parliament was quite volatile. So perhaps we can revisit that at a later stage if things improve. Thank you, Chairperson.
Be careful of what you're asking for, Honorable Bryant. Honorable Singh?
What you wish for, sometimes you get, Chairperson. Yeah, thank you. Just the question on the landfill sites, and are there any particular international standards or something that we adhere to in the establishment and monitoring of this landfill sites? I think I asked that question earlier. And also on the organic waste treatment plan 2022. Can we have a little bit more information about this? And then Chair, I want to raise a bit of a sensitive matter, I think sensitive to all of us. and I don't think we'll classify this as waste. But by and large, in the Hindu culture to which I belong, when somebody passes, cremations are the order of the day. Now, I remember the days when cremations used to be by wood fire, then diesel, then gas. And of late, when Archbishop Emeritus, late Honorable Tutu, was cremated, there was an innovative way of cremation, as a water therapy or something. Now, will the department consider assisting private crematoria? And I know in the area in Durban, there's private crematoria operating for almost 100 years. And at the moment, they're doing anything between 12 to 15 cremations a day. Will the department consider this innovative way? It's the first time I heard of cremation by water, but I believe it's environmentally friendly, etc. Will the department consider talking about something like that and assisting crematoria that want to establish these kinds of plants? Thank you.
Honorable Singh, the department in less than 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. On the question, follow up by Honorable Bryant on plastic waste, I think what we will do, we will share that information in writing, just to ensure that we don't miss anything, given that we did not prepare the information and there are specifics linked to waste coming from Germany and China. We will look into our basal applications that we had processed and submit that response in writing. And on the new landfill site or land waste facility it was for the city of Johannesburg. I'm going to also ask that, given that we will be getting input on Friday, because the specifics in terms of the details, site selection, site options, the municipality will have handy. I will talk to the waste management officer such that we are clear on that. We don't have the specifics currently now. Honorable Sin, we do have a norms and standards in terms of guiding the standards disposal to landfill. It's part of our framework under the Act. So the municipalities and the private landfill owners, they make use of that particular standard. But I will ask Michelle if she could come through based on what could be coming from the international with regard to landfilling. On the organic waste treatment, it's a norms and standard, Honorable Sin. Previously, when we engaged with the biogas sector, it became clear that we needed to also consider looking into lessening the administrative burden, such that not everything, even small biodigesters, they don't need to go through the waste management licensing process. So what we are putting now, which is something that would be done by end of March, because we've gone through the consultation, the norms and standards were published for soliciting public comments in 2021. We've received comments and we've done the revision. We are just taking through the revised norms and standards through the process now. So it's going to assist the biogas, especially sector, as well as those that are looking into having small biodigesters, such that they don't have to go through an administrative process. It's just part of us lessening the administration requirements there. So it will be in place by March because it's part of our delivery on the plan. And on the question of the remains, the new technology in terms of cremation, generally, yes. I think it's we need to be engaging also with stakeholders in terms of the management of the resource generally, but also new ways of ensuring that the impact of our actions when it comes to management of remains, we could look into that. So it's an area that we have noted its development, and some of the facilities do have issues with regard to the emissions, and understanding this new technology might also reduce the impacts looking into this technology. So it's something that we will engage as a department with the stakeholders in the process. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mayor. I heard you mention other names, and I was worried that you have started noting people without my permission. Are we content with the answers? Are you guys content? Are there further clarifications you want to provide to honorable members?
Sorry, Chair, I see, okay, there was a question, sorry, Honorable Bryant, I think a follow-up link to the Western Cape. Can I request through you, Mayor Michelle Govender to come in to clarify that, Honorable Chair.
Mayor Michelle Govender, please come in.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Just a quick response to that question. There is a plan in place by the Western Cape government to look at another regional site. That is going to take some time, but they are still wanting to have that particular regional site up and running. The other option that the Western Cape government is exploring at this stage is pushing for currently licensed sites to reduce the amount of waste coming in and pushing as much, for example, organic waste into composting, into combined heat and power generation, so that they could save some of their landfill sites. So that process is underway, and I think I will give more feedback once we get that information from the Western Cape, our officials in the Western Cape. And then just a point of clarity, Honorable Bryant, the 2% that I made reference to in terms of waste referred to disposal. We do not accept waste from OECD countries for disposal, but we do accept them for recycling. And as Maukhala committed, we would be able to provide the statistics to you. Thank you. And one final one through you, Chair, on Honorable Singh's questions about international standards. We are on par with the rest of the world, Honorable Singh, when it comes to design of landfill sites. The issue here that we have is the monitoring and the compliance with those standards. So the initial construction meets international standards, but afterwards there are issues relating to operation, which we are addressing through our compliance monitoring unit at the national department, as well as the units within the provincial and governments. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Bryant, I want to assume that's an old hand. It looks very old.
Chair, it's just one brief comment, and then I'll be quiet, I promise you. But just very quickly, I think the answer from Ms. Govender cleared it up a little bit. But I think those are the exact semantics that we're dealing with here. You know, the exportation of another country's plastic waste, even though it's being used for recycling, is still a way for them effectively to outsource that function. And in a country like ours, which is so desperately in need of increased plastic recycling, we need to really look at you know, whether or not that is something that we should be prioritizing in the face of our own massive plastic pollution issues that we're having in our own South Africa. So I look forward to the specific details that have been promised around that. And I'd just like to ask, if possible, if we could have it before Friday's meeting, that would be very beneficial. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
It's fine, Honorable Bryant, so that I don't give Honorable Ms. Govender another opportunity to respond, because you are swimming in my swimming pool now of time. I hope that Ms. Govender will be able to clarify, even if it's on the chat here, as to whether you are able to get this information as a committee before Friday. Without further ado, honorable members, let me take this opportunity to invite the South African Local Government Association to speak to us on local government support program on the waste sector. We have received and noted the apology of, I think, an NEC member responsible for environmental affairs, but somebody else is here to give us this briefing. Morena, please go ahead. Just switch on your video so that we can put the face behind the voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, members of the committee, and colleagues from the department and other institutions that are invited here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Mtobeli Kolisa. I am the Chief Officer responsible for service delivery, spatial transformation, and sustainability at SALGA. I'm here with my colleagues responsible for trading services, which including the waste trading service, and as well as sustainability, which also includes environment and waste management sustainability contribution. And lastly, a colleague responsible for waste management specifically. We have prepared a presentation as invited, Chair, that looks at quickly the overview of the waste sector from a local government perspective, and as well as the support program that is being implemented in respect of the waste sector. We have also recognized that despite all of the things that we are all talking about, including the support program, the reality of the matter is that our municipal spaces are filthy. That's what the president says all the time, and that's what Minister Chrissy emphasizes all the time, that she needs to see movement to change that situation. So we have taken an opportunity for this presentation to look at some of the critical binding constraints that we wish to engage the portfolio on, and see if we could find support on by the portfolio committee. Those include the issue of raising public responsibility for keeping our cities clean, the issue of scaling up private-public partnership given the capacity constraints in municipalities, and lastly, the issue of financing and financial management in as far as it impacts on waste management in municipalities. I am going to request, Chair, that our colleague Dora Marema, who is responsible for municipal sustainability, leads the presentation on our behalf. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kolisa, and thank you, Honorable Chair. I would like to greet you, Honorable Chair, and I would like to greet the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the Honorable members, and all of the colleagues that are present here. As I've been introduced, my name is Dora Marema. I am the Portfolio Head for Municipal Sustainability at the South African Local Government Association. I'm going to be sharing with you, Chair, and honorable members, a presentation that we have we have put together. I'm not sure if it's visible on your screens.
It is visible, Dora. If you may just put it on a slideshow. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. In terms of the background of what we will provide in this presentation, we will look at the background, a little bit go into the problem statement, even though we have already gotten information from the presentation from the department. Look at the roles and responsibilities of the various sector members, local government, and then go into the local government support strategy itself. Look at some of the support interventions, then go into some of the observations and recommendations from SALGA, and then conclude. We are all aware that Part B of Schedule 5 of the Constitution places the responsibility on municipalities for refuse removal, refuse dumped, and solid waste disposal, as well as cleansing. However, for municipalities to be able to perform these responsibilities, they need to put in place appropriate infrastructure. They need to comply with the relevant legislation. They also need to have to build and to have relevant and enough technical and financial capacity, as well as collaborate with all of the relevant stakeholders. Just a quick glance on some of the challenges or what I would like to term the problem statement, and I know that some of these issues have already been covered. I would like to just indicate that we have a huge backlog in terms of waste collection from households in many informal areas, in many rural areas, where the services are not, have not been provided historically. There are challenges of road access into many of those areas that impedes vehicles to be able to move in and to collect the waste. There is a challenge of lack of infrastructure in terms of central collection points of waste. There are challenges of low revenue base, as well as lack of capacity in many municipalities to be able to perform the function. In terms of the roles and responsibilities, we know that the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment has got the overall responsibility to ensure that the sector performs and that there are appropriate policies which are implementable. They provide the coordination, enforcement, dissemination, reporting, and capacity building. In terms of the provinces, their role is to support local government in order for them to deliver on their mandate. They develop regulations and policies that are not impeding the ability of municipalities to deliver the service. They initiate support programs to assist municipalities to deliver on their waste management mandate, and they monitor, evaluate, and implement. And so they monitor and evaluate the development and implementation of municipal integrated waste management plans. The private sector, on the other hand, they also have got a big role to play because they are involved throughout the whole waste value chain as generators of waste, as providers of waste-related services in many areas, as recyclers of waste, as consumers of recycled materials, as well as providing an important interface between the consumers and the waste itself. Then we've got the informal sector, a huge contingent of waste pickers in our society that play an important role in terms of solid management waste, and where they are collecting recyclables that are incorporated into our economy's production processes. They are a lot of majority that are already formalized and organized and SALGA is also continuously engaging with this organized formations of informal waste pickers. Then we've got civil society. In our view, public awareness of the impacts of waste is crucial, and I think it has been mentioned in the previous input as well, in terms of us as a country achieving a culture of compliance and a civic responsibility around waste, particularly around the issues of littering and illegal dumping. In order for us to achieve this, we would need political leaders, community-based organizations, NGOs, trade unions, schools, and others to have an important role in raising awareness on the role of all of society in avoiding littering and taking good care of the environment they live in. We are all aware of the presidential campaign, the Good Green Deeds, and that has been rolled out. However, our feeling is that it hasn't really gained a lot of traction in communities, and as a result, we haven't seen a lot of uptake from this campaign by communities, even though the department and the president now and then engage in a number of activities under this campaign. We feel that there is a need for political leaders on all levels, on national, provincial, and local, to drive a campaign of civic responsibility in this area of work, almost a similar initiative to what we have seen in Rwanda. On the other hand, from the SALGA side, our community safety team is currently working on advising municipalities to develop the necessary capacity to ensure enforcement of the bylaws, as well as protection of the assets, in addition to traffic management. The support interventions that are being provided are all in line with Section 1541 of the Constitution, which mandates the national and provincial governments to support and strengthen the capacity of municipalities to enable them to manage their own affairs and to exercise their powers. SALGA's approach to support is slightly different in the sense that our role is to facilitate access to support and to leverage support for municipalities, even though at times SALGA has also provided hands-on support as well as advice in collaboration with other sector partners in the department where and when necessary. We have developed with the department a local government support strategy. It is a 5-year strategy which has been adopted at the MINMEC level for us to be able to, to support municipalities to improve waste management and other environmental management functions. The strategy is currently under implementation, and implementation plans have been developed and also approved by MINMEC. And I think it's important to note that this is a sector. It is a sector strategy, and all of the sector members have got various deliverables under that implementation plan. The strategy itself, it prioritizes 3 key areas. The first area is the development, review, and implementation of evidence-based decision support tools, where the department and SALGA are working with municipalities to put together the integrated waste management plans and ensure that they are being implemented. The second priority is on the development and improvement of waste management systems and processes, where municipalities are being advised on the various innovative ways and mechanisms in which they could be able to deliver the services. Then the third aspect is on capacity building, both of councillors and officials. Currently, SALGA, together with the department and all the sector partners, have put together an integrated councillor induction program where waste is a crucial part of that. And we are going to be rolling out this program starting from the month of April. Where we are going to be working with councillors, not only those that are responsible for waste, but we are also targeting others that are working on issues of infrastructure, issues or issues of financing, as well as planning. For us, it is important that the councillors are given the appropriate information starting from the legislation that needs to be complied with, but also what are the areas that have been challenges in local government that needs their attention. We are literally hoping that this won't be, it won't be a once-off event. It's going to be a reiterative process where SALGA, together with the department and sector partners, will regularly go and engage with the councillors to ensure that they have got an understanding of the agency of us as a country addressing the issues of waste management. There are also a number of programs that are being implemented by SALGA and the department to train up municipal officials, for example, on waste separation at source, on how to operate landfill sites and things like that. I mentioned a little bit in the previous slide about some the instances where SALGA provides hands-on support, particularly to low capacity and small scale municipalities. And this kind of support involves development of waste planning tools, like the integrated waste management plans, as well as developing bylaws to assist municipalities to be able to developing model bylaws to assist municipalities to develop their own bylaws. And just also to work on workshops and where we are taking through the municipalities through the model bylaws so that they understand the gist of what that bylaw is supposed to achieve. This is also done to municipalities that are struggling with utilizing the tools that we are making available to them. And to date, about 50 small and low capacity municipalities have been assisted in this way. Then there is support that has been provided to municipalities to improve on the waste value chain. There we look at analyzing the waste management status quo and the implication of that on the citizens and the municipalities themselves. We develop short and long-term turnaround plans for the municipalities. A case in point is the work that SALGA is currently doing at KSD local municipality, where the city of Mthatha was regarded as the dirtiest city in the country, and SALGA put together a team that went in to work with the municipality to conduct an assessment on the state of waste management in that municipality, as well as develop a turnaround plan. So the work that has been done so far has generated some of the lessons that we believe could be able to assist us as we're continuing to provide hands-on support to a number of municipalities. Firstly, that waste management service in many small and undercapacitated municipality, is critically undercapacitated in terms of the equipment, in terms of the fleet, and as well as personnel. That the capacitation of the waste services in those municipalities in terms of the equipment, infrastructure, and proper management system usually comes at a huge cost, which is unaffordable to many of those municipalities. That there is a need to explore private sector partnerships to improve the waste management in the form of injecting investment for infrastructure and capacity building to those smaller municipalities. And the importance of utilizing the National Treasury's public-private partnership framework as well. The one area that we have been working on SALGA with municipalities is the initiative around waste to energy technology, which we have seen that it's got a huge potential to reduce waste that would otherwise go into a landfill and actually take that waste and beneficiate it. This waste to energy technologies have got a potential to reduce the amount of methane gas that is released into the atmosphere from the landfills, and thus also mitigating climate change. So in some instances, the gas has been flared, to basically dispose of the flammables, control the odor, and mitigate the gas that would rather be concentrated on the atmosphere and thus cause climate change. This gas is captured to generate electricity and used directly for space and water heating. It can also be upgraded, concentrated, and compressed to pipeline quality gas, where the gas may be used directly or processed into alternative vehicle fuel. So the cities, in particular the metros, have got an opportunity to explore these waste to energy technologies that are available. So as a result of that, in 2021, SALGA embarked on an initiative that worked with the 8 metros to initiate a process to design a support program for these metros and assess the possibilities of coordinating and facilitating waste to energy projects in those municipalities with the assistance of the private sector investors, and as well as advance and promote the waste to energy projects in the metros, and thereby leveraging technical assistance and support to the cities from the private sector. So the outcomes of the engagement that SALGA held with the metros indicated that the metros are definitely willing and interested to generate electricity from waste. More than 60% of the metros have identified sites for the waste to energy projects already. So, for example, some of the metros include the city of Cape Town, which has 2 landfill gas to electricity CDM registered projects. One in Belleville is currently operating, and the other one for the 2 megawatts at the Coastal Park. We've got the 3 Gauteng metros, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and Joburg, that have already completed feasibility studies with the assistance of the Gauteng Infrastructure Finance Agency. The outcomes of that feasibility indicates that the waste to energy initiatives are viable. However, implementation will require partnerships with private sector due to the amount of investments and capital as well as capacity that is required. So the Gauteng Infrastructure Fund is implementing a municipal waste treatment technology initiative with the 3 metros as well as the 2 districts of Citybeng and West Rand. SALGA has had a continuous engagement with them, and we believe that this could potentially provide a framework that can be implemented throughout the country. Through this process, what we are learning is that it is critical to obtain political buy-in through municipal council approvals for these projects, that within a municipality, it is important to have all of the strategic departments, for example, waste, energy, electricity, environment, finance, and procurement, really being involved in the onset of planning this waste to energy project, so that there is a clear understanding, but also coordination and avoid delays. We also learned that private sector requires conducive conditions for them to enter into partnership with municipalities. For example, they need guarantee of waste materials for these waste to energy technologies that would need to be operated on top of the council approvals. So municipalities also need to put together, they need to be assisted in putting together the public-private partnerships. So this is the one area that we have identified. So the SALGA is currently playing a coordination role in ensuring that metros in particular are exploring these opportunities. So I think, as our chief officer mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, that despite all the support initiatives by SALGA, the department, and the sector partners, waste management services seem to not be improving within municipalities. We continue to see a lot of litter in the country, and so we require to be able to think strategically in terms of what are the fundamental challenges that are gripping this sector, and how can we be able to resolve them. So we would like to bring to the attention of the portfolio committee the 3 key points that the chief officer has mentioned. The first one is resourcing and fiscal support for waste management services in municipalities. The second being the role of the broader public in ensuring that waste does not pollute our environment. And the third one being the role of partnerships with private sector. All of these three, which we believe are really beyond the environmental sector and require urgent attention from parliamentarians, but also all of government and all of society. So on the first point, which is resourcing and fiscal support for waste management services in municipalities, this slide here, we just like to indicate the funding sources for waste management in municipalities. So the funding is derived from the taxes, the property rates. Funding is derived from the tariffs that are charged for collecting the waste. Funding is derived from the transfers from Treasury, and then there is an opportunity for those municipalities who are in good financial standing to be able to go to the open market and secure and be able to borrow funds for them to bolster the waste management services. However, we also have noticed that there is an emerging funding source in the form of the waste to energy projects, as well as other resource recovery initiatives that municipalities could be involved in. So in this slide, I would just like to indicate to honorable members, for you to be able to see the amount that is being allocated to waste as part of the local government equitable share. This slide has been compiled from the 2021-2022 reports drawn from the National Treasury. You can see here that we've got these four services: energy, water, sanitation, refuse removal. In terms of what we've got here for refuse removal per household, the amount that has been allocated for a household for refuse removal for both for operations and for maintenance is a total of 93 Rand 28 cents. As in comparison, as compared to what is being allocated for sanitation, which is 111 Rand 28 cents, 155 Rand 73 cents for water, and 99 Rand 83 cents for energy. So you can really see that waste removal, refuse removal is really not being adequately funded as part of the equitable share as compared to the other three services. So, so you have seen that that's in the previous slide that there's limited resources that have been deployed to municipalities to provide waste management services. Also, the Stats SA data shows that about 64.7% of households are receiving waste collection services. So, you know, we are trying to just make the link here in terms of the number of households that are receiving services, also linking that to the resources, the financial resources that are made available per household. So the efforts to increase waste collection are continuously impaired by lack of adequate waste infrastructure, lack of capacity, particularly in small to large town municipalities. So there has been an increased emphasis on the need to improve waste management and compliance to the legislative framework, but little effort has been undertaken to examine the funding mechanisms affecting solid waste services. So as a result, we are appealing to the Portfolio Committee that you assist us and support us in lobbying for appropriate funding for waste services, so that it is really on par with the other services, as I've indicated in the other slide. Then on the second issue, on the role of public in ensuring that waste does not pollute the environment, we've already indicated that, you know, while various stakeholders have been putting a lot of effort in order to shift the behavior of South Africans from a throwaway culture to a responsible waste management culture, these efforts to date have been irregular and not consistent, both on time and geographical scale. In order to have a meaningful shift away from illegal dumping and littering to a recycling behavior or reduce and recycle behavior in South Africa, a change of mindset of the public is really important. And this requires a systematic and holistic campaign on behavioral change to be put on the national agenda. And as a result, it is our plea to the Portfolio Committee and all of parliamentarians to assist with profiling the call to action for our communities to keep South Africa clean. So on the last point on partnerships with private sector. So here the point that we would like to make is that there are various ways of contracting private sector, within government, and particularly in this context within municipalities. That there is a need for us to explore various ways of bringing the role of private sector in order to augment the capacity of municipalities to deliver efficient and reliable waste management services. On the slide here, I have got various options that could be explored by municipalities to be able to bring in the private sector. I think the one other deterrent has been the municipalities trying to be risk averse, but we can see that there are other options where the risk could be shared between the municipality and the private sector, and in some instances where the risk is completely being put on the private sector. And these are some of the options that we would like municipalities and the whole of government to start looking at. So strategic partnerships, as we mentioned, are important for augmenting the capacity gap in municipalities. There are a couple of case studies that have indicated that the capacitation of municipal waste services in terms of equipment, infrastructure, and proper management systems comes at a huge cost. And quite a number of municipalities, as I've indicated, especially the small towns municipalities, really are battling to afford these. In his February 2022 State of the Nation address, His Excellency President Ramaphosa indicated that there should be a new consensus which recognizes that the state must create an environment in which the private sector can invest and unleash the dynamism of the economy. So this will definitely provide an opportunity for municipalities to harness on the waste expertise and resources that are sitting in the private sector through appropriate mechanisms in order to improve the waste management service. In conclusion, honorable members and chair, I think we can agree that waste management is one essential service that is being provided by municipalities in order to keep our country clean, as well as ensuring good health and well-being of our citizens. So providing waste collection services, we also know that is an integral element of our modern society, and hence agency on the need to extend waste collection services to areas that are currently not serviced, as well as the need to ensure that quality service in areas where is being rendered where services are being currently rendered is crucial. The experience has shown us that in order to provide waste management services to the required standard, there is a need for municipalities to build appropriate institutional capacity, in necessary infrastructure, which requires high costs. This, in most cases, as I mentioned previously, is a huge challenge for most of our municipalities, particularly in rural and small towns. It is crucial to decrease, and I think we have seen the amount of waste that is going into the landfill sites. And I think you have also noted that a huge part of that is organic waste. So it's important that we decrease the reliance of municipalities on landfill sites by introducing alternative waste treatment technologies like the waste to energy, to look at opportunities of beneficiating the waste, and thus with all of these in the process will be creating jobs. It is believed that the participation of private sector will have a critical role in taking waste management in South Africa to the desired level. Firstly, in respect of small and medium-sized municipalities, this will be towards the support of private sector will be towards augmenting the capacity of municipalities to provide efficient and reliable waste management services. In respect of metros, this private sector involvement will be in the form of investment in exploring alternative waste treatment technologies like the waste to energy initiative that we mentioned. Lastly, Chair and honourable members, we would like to request Parliament to take a lead in convincing the whole of government and society to play a role in ensuring that South Africa is clean. We are saying this because we know that if we continue to litter in the same way that we are littering, even though municipalities could provide the infrastructure in the form of bins everywhere, those bins will be filled to the brim if all of society is not working hard in ensuring that we are keeping South Africa clean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salga. Honorable members, let me take this opportunity to welcome the chairperson of the committee. She has briefed me that she's on her way. She has been discharged from the doctor and the hospital. She's now driving home, but I wish to acknowledge her presence here, although she will not be actively participating. That is a presentation from the South African Local Government Association. I wish to invite honorable members to engage the presentation. I see the hand of Honorable Cheryl Phillips, the hand of Honorable Paulsen. In that order, Honorable Kancho, you'll be the third.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you to Salva for the presentation. It was very informative. I just have some questions. The one is that some municipalities don't collect refuse from RDP houses. And in my constituency, I'm told that's because the area hasn't been proclaimed. Can you maybe just help me to understand why it has to be proclaimed and how that influences the municipality's collection of waste from these settlements or villages? And then the other question that I've got is, while I understand that waste to energy is a very good way of us getting energy, it can also be very toxic and it can result in as much carbon emissions as we are getting from coal and gas. There's also a proven link between the incineration rate of waste to the reduction in recycling. So in other words, countries that incinerate their waste for energy are less likely to recycle. Now, recently, or not recently, but a while ago in Denmark, there was a malfunction on the plant and there was a lot of toxins that was put into the atmosphere because of this malfunction. Regulations in Denmark are very strict and very tight. So I would like to know, do we have a legislation in place that will control any of these harmful emissions, and how will it be enforced? Thank you very much.
Honorable Paulsen.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Ms. Marema, for the presentation. When it comes to setting up landfill sites or waste disposal facilities, what is the standard that is being used in terms of the size? I mean, it's not every municipality has the same size population. So what is used to determine whether a municipality has an adequate waste disposal sort of facility or infrastructure? And then also in terms of those areas that are inaccessible because of roads, what is the alternative that is given to those residents in terms of getting rid of their waste? Would there be why not consider a central place where they could skip or something where they could go and put their waste and the municipality can collect it that's close there? Because I mean, it's The informal settlements, we know the country is underdeveloped. There's no streets. Roads have been stolen, or the money for roads have been stolen. So there's no development. So people are suffering because of that. So what is the alternative for them? Also, in the town of Tromsburg in October or September, October, November, municipal workers weren't paid, and as a result, they collected all the dirt, had it in the town. The wind came, and the dirt was blown all over town, and nothing was done about it. So when municipalities don't pay their staff, their employees, their workers, those workers, as a sign of protest, make sure that all of us experience the indignation of having rubbish all over. So what can be done in situations like that when a municipality is just poorly managed, there's no money, the workers are using the issue of waste collection as a means of protest against them not being paid. And we know in Garib, it was for many months that not just workers but also councillors weren't being paid. What happens in those instances? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Paulsen. Honorable Ganjo.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you also to Salga for their presentation. They've mentioned the issue of limited resources, and honestly, municipalities, they don't have resources. The issue of yellow fleet, Chairperson, in most of the municipalities, especially the rural ones and the one that I'm coming from, they have to hire from private companies if they want to use yellow fleet, and because their camping sites are full into capacity. I just want to check, Chairperson, what can be done to make sure that they assist the municipalities in terms of yellow fleet. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Ganjo. Honorable Singh, I see the hand of Natasha Ambrosio, Mr. Price Group. Is that a wrong hand?
No, that is correct.
Because this is an opportunity. No, but this is an opportunity for members of parliament to engage the presentation. Mr. Price Group, are you a new member, perhaps?
Good day, Chair. I received the invite to attend this meeting, so if it's an incorrect invitation, I apologize, but I have been listening into the presentations. Am I allowed to be here and respond?
Are you part of the Salga group?
Buza. I represent Buza.
No. Miss Ambrosio, unfortunately, it's only members of parliament who can engage. Okay. You are welcome to listen and take your own notes, perhaps engage them privately, but in this platform, only members of parliament can engage.
Okay, thank you.
Honorable C.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to know from Salga, thank you, Salga, for your presentation. Is simply outsourcing waste management the way to go? The thing is, we've had difficulties in many metros where municipal officials have gone on strike for days on ends because these services are being outsourced. What is the happy balance between outsourcing and insourcing? And the second question, as far as Salga is concerned, you mentioned that there's a training you offer to waste management officials at municipal level. Now, what is the nature of this training and who funds this training? And do you have a performance monitor to see whether this training that you offer is successful or not? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Salga.
Thank you, Chair. I will start, I will start, and then my colleagues will add on the questions that I will indicate to them to add on. Maybe I should start right from the last question. I'll leave the training part to my colleague Balanganani to respond to. The one question from Honorable Singh that I would like just to have a discussion on is the outsourcing, which is linked to possibly what was raised by Honorable Kanjo. The situation, Chair, is that as things stand now in most municipalities that are in the lower categories that are not metros or major cities, we have a situation where the need for fleet, the need for expertise, the need for investment in the development of infrastructure such as landfill sites, the need for what do you call the places where you manage your fleet, you store your fleet, you service your fleet, is quite huge. And when you look at the resources that are available to the municipality, it will take years to meet that need. It is in that context that we talk about the need to look at exploring partnerships with private sector. It's to augment cases where municipalities do not have capacity to by themselves fulfill this role. But what we also know is that this has been done largely in South Africa through the form of can I call it a risk-free relationship with private sector, where private sector are just simply service providers. The municipality will hire a truck of the municipality, of private sector, to collect waste. Whether that waste is collected efficiently and there's revenue that is being collected from those who receive that service is not a risk that the private sector is faced with. We are saying that there is a need to look at meaningful private-public partnerships where we increasingly share a risk with those who are partnering with municipalities in the area of infrastructure services provision. We are saying this because there's also been some sense of being averse to private partnerships in South Africa, even though legislation allows for it. There's generally been an attitude of being averse towards it. And we are at a point now where there is no new money that the public sector will get and provide to these services. And therefore we need to leverage not only just the money, but also the skills of the private sector to answer the issues of fleet as Honorable Kanjo was raising, and also to augment the capacity of municipalities. We are not saying just outsource everything. Where there is capability in a municipality, such as the metros have been doing, that they are using internal resources to provide the service. That is the ideal, but where we need to leverage resources beyond the municipality capacity itself, then that's where we are talking about the need for us as South Africa to start really looking with more positivity towards private sector partnership in service delivery in local government. On the question raised by Mr. Paulson, Honorable Paulson, the determinants of landfill size is basically based on the estimation of the amount of waste that is being collected or being produced by the consumers. So different municipalities, depending on what they have in landfill size, in planning waste disposal facilities going forward, they take into account the amount that is being produced by the producers of waste in the municipal area. In respect of areas that do not have access or are not accessible, what is being done? Like for instance, in the informal settlement, we have seen the innovations of some of our cities where they have what we call rudimentary services, where they provide households in informal settlement with plastic bags and demarcating places nearby those informal settlements where households can take their waste to those places where a truck can at least be able to go and collect and clean up waste from those areas. It's not ideal, which is why it is not encouraged that people develop in the way they do in informal settlements, because without access to the households, most of the services are not able to be provided, including waste, including ambulance services, and so on and so on. But where it has happened, then municipalities try to creatively deal with that. Maybe I should link that with the excuse that has been given to some of the leaders about RDP houses, where a municipality does not collect because an RDP house is not proclaimed. It is not a requirement of waste management that you can only collect from proclaimed areas. However, what other municipalities tend to do is that in their planning, they prioritize areas that once they proclaim, they are able to map them in their collection schedules and be able to collect from them. But it's not a requirement that only in proclaimed areas that waste will be collected. We are in our hands-on support and advice, engaging with municipalities, making sure that municipalities share experience with each other. We would like, in cases where some municipalities are stuck with some practices such as that we facilitate inter-information exchange as to how other municipalities have overcome the issues of planning in a context where they have unproclaimed areas, but those areas are producing waste. We would like to help those municipalities through other municipalities to share experiences where they've solved those particular matters. I thought I should take those questions and then ask my colleagues to fill in the ones that have starting with Malanganani and then Dora.
No, thanks, Mto, CO, and thanks, Honorable MPs. Honorable Singh, I would want to address the issue of training. You would know that waste management service, it's one of the services that is more of logistics, and it has a lot of operations, which in turn, you have low to medium skills that requires to be constantly be refreshed and capacitated. So in collaboration with the department, we provide in collaboration with DFFE, we provide training to those low-skilled officials who are at landfills, as well as those who need to do separation at source. We do that internally ourselves. We are competent to be able to do that, and we've been doing that, and we have seen some sort of improvement, especially around understanding what is in the bin, which is characterization, so which is very critical for municipal officials to understand what characteristics of waste that do they have, because it assists in terms of planning. So we do that in collaboration with the department to assist municipal officials to do that. I would also want to comment, provide an answer to Honorable Ganjo on the issue of yellow fleet, which I fully agree that it's a huge challenge. However, what we've been doing with the department was to lobby National Treasury as well as COPTA to allow for the reform of municipal infrastructure grant. Previously, municipalities would not be able to use MIG to fund what are called yellow fleet, as well as the trucks, which it has been a huge problem. So now that provision has been made, or that reform has been made through the lobbying of SALGA and the department. And we are continuously assisting, especially the low capacity municipalities, to be able to take advantage of this provision so that it will then contribute to the eradication of backlog that most of municipalities are facing. I would also like to make input on the issue that Honorable Phillips has touched around the balance act between the waste to energy facilities or initiatives, as well as the issue of recycling. I think what is critical is around the conceptualization and planning for these facilities. It's so important that we look at the size, we look at the amount of waste that is within the particular municipality. But from SALGA point of view, what we encouraging municipalities is to look at a regional kind of approach, so that we don't have mushrooming of these facilities, and at the end, then we have challenges that you have raised, where then there's a need to constantly feed these facilities with waste that may not be there. So that's one area that we are guiding municipalities, especially metros, who are looking at these initiatives. I think, Dora, if you would want to cover others through you, Chairperson, yeah, I'm covering those that I've mentioned. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair. I would like to respond to the one question which I know hasn't been responded, which came from Honorable Singh on the training, in terms of who funds that training, and how do we measure whether that training has made an impact or not. The training is provided by the department, including SALGA, as well as our other sector partners. So, for example, SALGA has got a program that we are currently rolling out in partnership with the Belgian government. And as part of that project, municipalities are being provided with capacity building and training. So as our other partners, including the GIZ, the CSRR, this is also part of the local government support strategies, local and implementation plan that we've put together. So we report to the working group, as the DDG indicated earlier, that there is a working group that we all participate in, to be able to evaluate and to measure whether the training that we are providing is resulting in any impact in terms of the municipalities being able to operate the landfill sites in a proper manner in terms of the compliance. And where we realize that there is no movement, we then organize bilateral meetings with those municipalities to be able to really go to the bottom of the issue, to understand what else could be a challenge that may not necessarily be related to issues of skills and capacity building. So that's in a nutshell. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Lastly, Chair, just on the training of councillors, that is the role that SALGA is playing. We just immediately after elections, we implement a program of inducting councillors on the work of being a councillor. We have done the generic part now in almost all municipalities across the country. From the month of March, we will be doing what we call portfolio-based induction. For example, for waste management, councillors that are MECs for waste management or are portfolio committee members for waste management will be taken through the detail of how this function is delivered and what are the responsibilities of a councillor in ensuring that this function is delivered appropriately, just for them to know what is it that they are responsible for implementing. That's the program that SALGA is implementing. Then the last part of the question that we thought we may not have covered is the one that is about the waste to energy and the extent to which it pollutes. I mean, internationally, there are experiences of implementing waste to energy facilities in a way that takes into account the environmental impact. which results in those facilities having lesser impact than if waste was disposed in a different way. So there are experiences worldwide that we can draw for this particular purpose. Again, I think Councillor Phillips indicated that she has knowledge of cases where when you implement waste to energy facilities, there has been a reduction in recycling. In one of the municipalities here in South Africa, where we have done a feasibility study for the implementation of a possible waste to energy facility. One of the things that feasibility study structured itself around was to make sure that what gets to get to the facility for waste to energy is actually residual waste. That if you structure it in such a way that all along the value chain to the facility, there's extraction of waste. You start with that extraction of the recyclable waste. It was found that there isn't really a competition because there's enough waste that is residual that could not have otherwise been used other than going to landfill site that can still be used for waste to energy. So there is a healthy coexistence between waste to energy and the recycling of recyclable waste in those cases. So I think with that experience, we know that we can structure to have these programs coexisting instead of competing. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, your hands look very old. Honorable Phillips, Honorable Paulsen. Are these the new hands?
Chairperson, just one last question out of curiosity, Chairperson. There's a slide where they say that Mthatha is the dirtiest city in the country or municipality. I just want to know which one is the cleanest.
Salga.
That's a difficult question, Chair, but I know that for some years now, the department has been running a competition of green and clean cities. So from time to time, I don't think there's one, but from time to time, in a particular year, there would emerge a city that comes across, or a municipality that comes across as being clean for that particular year. So it will be a product of that particular competition. But what we have been really focusing on our side has been to try and help where we think that the situation has become quite desperate. Thank you.
You should have just said it's the West Rand, but it's fine. Let's proceed in the name of peace and progress. I take it that those were the last follow-ups, honorable members. In the absence of further hands, may I request Chilega to just screen the agenda for us as we move towards closure, because I know honorable members must appear some of us must appear in the National Assembly by 2. Chilega? Chilis, have you knocked off?
I'm here, Mr. Matisse.
Well, according to the agenda, we were supposed to consider the minutes and then we have agreed, we adopted the agenda that will process them in the meeting scheduled to take place on Friday.
On the 18th. That's correct, Mr. Matisse.
Honorable members, with that being said, it is my honor and privilege to thank you for allowing us this borrowed time on behalf of Honorable Mutambi to chair this meeting. With that being said, this has been a fruitful meeting. I know that this presentation.
Sorry.
Is that an order, Honorable
Chairperson? No, I'm sorry, I just missed you because I had to go somewhere. Are we dealing with the minutes or the next time around? Because there was one issue on the St. Lucia Wetland Park and the emergency measures that we supposed to get a report within 7 days. Is this something we can deal with on Friday, or can the department tell us what they're doing about that what we had resolved as a committee on last week. Thank you.
But when we adopted the agenda, Honorable Singh, we had suggested that we process these minutes on Friday. And this issue, it was completely out of my sight that we had scheduled 7 days. I'm not too sure when does it end. Is it that agent that you would reckon it be processed today?
I suppose we could wait till Friday to get some report. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Singh. Can the department ensure that that report forms part of the minutes to be considered and adopted on Friday? With that being said, let me take this opportunity to thank the Minister and the Deputy Minister, thank the Chairperson, Honorable Mutambi, and all members of the committee, and all the participants who attended our meeting today. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.